Ashgrove. Now we're going to go through quite a varied programme this evening to give you an idea of the variety of music that's happening in Springhill School. Generally, it has been the tradition that it's those in the orchestra or those who have lessons with the peripatetics that are in the concert. That is the same this evening, with the exception of 2 or 3 additions that shows the way that music may be going in our schools. So we're going to look at the string section first, and our first piece this evening is by Claire Winter, and it's called Sailor's Song. Starting with strings, another violin piece by Caroline Young called Gavotte. Ladies haven't got the old together on violin, we have got Terry Watson, who's going to play Andantino. Emma Morn is going to play something called Seagulls. Now we've had new items. First time I've seen this in about 3 years. That's the solo classical guitar, Christopher Olding, playing Prelude in A minor. In our concert, we decided to include some other entrants to the music festival this year, because it is a music and drama festival, and therefore the spoken word has its place. And so we've got 2 entrants from the festival, Christina Corder and Catherine Cookhard. And then that will be followed by somebody who wasn't in the festival, but who wrote a poem about life at Springhill School. And it was so good that at a special request of the master, we've included Luke Brown. So first was Christina.
Battle Bridge by Laura E. Richard. The strangest sight I've ever seen was a battle bridge in a flying machine. The witch flew high. The witch flew low, the witch flew fast, the witch flew slow, the witch flew up, the witch flew down. She circled all around the town, then turning left and turning right, she disappeared into the night. That fat old witch in a flying machine is the strangest sight I've ever seen. Of course, it happened on Halloween. First day at school by Roger Ross. A million, billion, trillion miles from noisy. So much at home they must have been born in uniform. Lived on their iron playground. 30 years and 30 days, don't years. Games of rough that swallow you up. And the rain, all around, the rain. Are they to keep out into monsters? Things carry off weak children. Things you don't take peace from. Perhaps the past is now, running away from the lessons. Lessons? What does the lesson look like? Sounds small and slimy. They put them in glasses. Whole room made out of glass. Imagine! I wish I could remember my name. Mummy said it's kind of useful. Like Wellies when they cuddle. Yellow Wellies. I wish she was here. I think I may have going on somewhere. Perhaps teacher will read it for me. Teacher. The one who makes the show.
From year 8, Luke Brown.
School is a rhythm in your life, an experience to remember, and a hell to live. A scuttle across your brain and a plunge in your heart. Swirl around from class to class, confusing the mind, turning from mindless work. Good times at school are idyllic and hysterical. Things to be remembered, etched into your brain from day to day. School shows its wrath by the teachers at the end. Fiery dragons, black as ink, and sharp, curve-like talons, sharp as razors, poised and sharp. But then, they can be peaceful as love. Majestic and calm, showing its mercy. The school I attend is a Catholic school, and proud of it. An athletic school, a strict school, a school of charm, a school with education, being learned by the children at the parents. Springhill School is a school that I know, a part of my childhood, a panorama of visual experiences in the classroom or the playground, a bubble of organization and activities. Springhill School is a place I will remember. I've been there before.
You may know of the artist and writer Felwell, who does those little fat horses, fat girls on little fat horses. But he's also a very humorous writer, and he's a very, very good painter indeed. And Luke is going to spend a day with Felwell shortly, probably next Thursday, I've been told this afternoon. That's been arranged by Mr. Hollis, who unfortunately can't be here this evening. But Luke has that kind of talent, which we think really ought to be brought out and developed, and this is probably going to be one of many occasions where we can spend some time with a professional of either one or other of the arts. So I'm sure he'll enjoy that day.
So we've now been through the string section of the orchestra, and we now turn to the woodwind. And we start off with the clarinet. They're going to play a trio, just in front Renato, Louise Owen and Rachel Carter, called The Happy Farmer. have an unaccompanied duet called Duo Number 4 by Maureen Cusson and Judith Court. One of the most delightful things in our school orchestra this year has been the addition of a new sound. That is the oboe. Grania joined us last year, and I don't know if you heard the different sound when there was an oboe solo part in the oboe piece, the Astro this evening. That was chosen specifically so it could show off our new talent. Grania is now going to play something called chorus. Section of the wind department, we have Vanessa Lopez and Fiona Hollis, and then they're going to play two pieces, Minuet and then Unaccompanied Reveille. Very kindly took over the teaching of beginner recorders.
But for most of this term, I've restricted the membership to those children who don't receive any other instrumental tuition at school. Some of these children started learning the recorder after most of their friends were proficient. And I have the greatest admiration for children who continue to learn an instrument when others perhaps are already very good on the instrument and have moved on to something else. All of these children stay within this term and continue learning at their pace on the recorder. And in keeping with Bastille Day, we have 4 French tunes to play through.
stand together. It's written by Paul McCartney, and it's one that was the Rupert Frog song a couple of years back. And this is our very own arrangement of that song. Now the next item on the programme is very new to our school, although I know that it has been done a few years back. It's the first time I think we've had it in a concert. We gave, back in March, ordering Lent, the opportunity for anybody in the middle school to make a working musical instrument. And there were about 13 or 14 incredible entries. So difficult were they to judge that I passed the buck and gave that task to Mr. O'Farrell and Mr. Daly, who did the honours. And they came up with 3, the third, second and first. Third was Dominic Hardman, second was Christopher Taylor, and first was Catherine Taylor. And we're going to invite those 3 to come and talk about how they did it, why they did it, and to perhaps demonstrate their experience.
much fun to carry around, and it makes most sound. It was made out of balsa wood, hinge, and cane, and left band. My instrument is the soundbox. Chris, for my name Christopher. Sam couldn't make it, and Box was making the box. I made it by dipping in the box. I cut the lid into 2 triangle pieces, and then I put 2 flat wooden straighteners to keep the strings from not touching the wood. And then the wood on served as bushes. Then I tied on some screws and drilled a hole in them and tied the strings to the holes. Then I put the plastering, drilled the strings over here, and when you tighten screws it becomes higher, and when you loosen it becomes lower. And now I'm going to close and put them on one side.
Science has really been given a rather large chunk of curriculum time it should have. And music, it does say there should be a reasonable amount of time spent on music. I don't know whether I would class that as music or science, maybe it doesn't matter. But think about the ingenuity of those children who work unassisted to produce those pieces of work. I think they could have another... Creative music. We have often had the performed music that is written and scored, but I have tried in classrooms sometimes to actually give the children a theme to think about after experimenting with sounds, and they come up with a piece of music to make themselves. And I thought it'd be interesting to see what these musicians made of it. There were 4 groups, and they had a considerable amount of time over a period of weeks to just go away and do something. The only rule was they mustn't choose anything that has been heard before. And so there are 2 groups. we'll hear that there are two groups that really were prepared to play this evening. The first group is Vanessa's group. I'll say that was the sake of peace. Right, Vanessa and your group. Would you like to come up and talk about it and polish it up? Move on to the next section, to the last section for our evening. And it's the brass section, and we have Louise Dunleavy, Adrian Spencer, who are going to play another one from the fourth. Last Friday we had Kibotchi Mothers Bastille Day, and there was a very, very interesting piece called Bon Gendarme, performed by Dominic O'Farrell and Paul Madden and company. So over to and Miss Davis very kindly agreed to accompany. They were only given this piece to learn on Monday, and they've actually managed to do it. So can we welcome to Anthony Ryan and Andrush Sakai.
So
bound to the inevitable, especially when there is persistence to back it up. 3 young lads, one we've heard already, Dominic O'Farrell, Terry Watts, Kieran McCann, kept on pestering me and said, please come and listen to our pop song. I kept on trying to put it off, and they kept on coming back. When I did hear it, I was very impressed. Oh boy, was I impressed.
very patient, and I know it's very hot. But, so I'm going to cut my offering very short. Take out the joke. Right. I would of course like to congratulate the children because I have said it before and I'm sure that I can say it until the day that I retire from Springhill School that we have very, very talented children and we're very, very lucky to have them. We rejoice in our children, in your children. And really this evening is to pay tribute to them. It's very difficult to summarise all the things that he's done. I think very highly of him in school. I think we've been very honoured and very gifted to have him here. I thought so much of him to send him on a 3-week course. You remember? 4-week course. That's a new man. And of course we're not going to get the benefit of that. That goes to Canada with Alan. Anyway, and I hope you noticed that he gets the same suit each time. You can see that. It's the same way. Right, anyway. As it's a musical evening, I sat at home and I got advice from my musical advisor, and I've prepared some notes in the form of a symphonic study. How about that? Now, I'm not going to sing it, and I'm not going to play it. Although, by the way, what on earth am I going to do for an accompanist when we have to do those crazy evenings that we do? I think you'll have to come back, because it's about the only way I can get through the song is to know that he's chortling away behind the piano. Anyway.